Oh, you too. My peeps, I'm going to give you guys a thumbs up. Can you hear me? So you all ready to be happy? Woohoo, let's be happy. I've said this before, but I wish I could bottle this, sell it on Amazon, and send it to people. And then they'd go, oh, okay, that's what it is. And then we'd have a spiritual revolution. Yeah, well, the silence is the teaching for those who get it, and those who don't require the blah blah blah. Require the finger to point them back into this. And given that this whole realm is delusion, like we have to face the fact that we're all here because of our state of delusion. It's expected for people to not recognize their natural state because they're here. So the way I look at all thought is that it's just a relative form of existence. So you infer your existence relative to something else. So as long as there's a thought, it doesn't matter what the thought is, that's your ego that knows it exists because there's something there. And well, I must exist because something's there. So all thought, all of it, it seems as though one thought may be more important than the other or more applicable at a time than another thought, but it's all just Maya. And it's so hard to accept because everyone's operating on thought. Ev the whole human species is operating on that system, and that's why they're so freaking miserable. And let's face it, everyone's fucking miserable. It's either miserable or comfortably numb. There's no happiness anymore. I don't think that hardly anyone can just do what we're doing, sit in a chair and just be happy. It's Sometimes I don't answer questions that aren't pertinent. Have you found the solution yet, Seeker? I'm very glad. It kind of does seem almost ridiculous that this is so difficult, isn't it? To just sit and be happy in and of yourself. It's just so simple. And we've got all these philosophers and physicists and mathematicians trying to figure out what this is all about. Oh, if I had hair, right? Yeah, be still and know that you are God. It's exactly what it means. Now, what would there be to fear about being God? Like only the ego would be afraid of being God. It's the purpose of all of this. There is no other purpose to all of this. All experience is a game where you've intentionally forgotten that you're God so that you can remember it as a mystery or a puzzle or something to keep you entertained. That's all it is. The whole mess. And people don't like hearing that there is only one singular reason. And that singular reason is to basically escape this. It's too harsh, it's too hardcore for most people. They want someone to tell them that they can have their cake and eat it too, right? They can still be in this world and be enlightened and not suffer. This realm is suffering. But you get a lot more followers if you say stuff like that. So you can't generate happiness. You can't create it or manufacture it because that's your natural state. You can only generate and manufacture interest, right? But of course, that always passes because it's manufactured. So you just trade happiness in for interest. And when you're no longer interested and you just want to be happy, then you're a seeker. And that's the solution. This is the solution. The kingdom of heaven is within. I feel like I'd like to start a Sangha, a community, and I think it is starting already. But I'm going to do more of these because I sit here anyway. I might as well throw a camera up. Like I'm sitting here a lot, so I might as well just throw a camera up and just hold satsangs like every day. And I'm working on a new website, so maybe we'll have a discussion forum. But yeah, I see that non-conceptuality should be a thing. And I think that there should be people calling themselves non-conceptualists. So I don't want to call this a religion, maybe a new mode of investigation or something. But I think the best way to help and to get this particular message out is to have it a thing, a religion, I guess, and have people actually say, this is what I am, this is what I follow. Because the world doesn't need another religion, it needs a new system, right? I'd love to coin a word for this. I guess non-conceptuality is the word, right? It contains within it the whole thing. I would say probably 80% of the time there's nothing going on in there. No, no chatter anyway. Yeah, it's very simple. If someone asks, well, what's non-conceptuality? Well, you could just say it's the transcendence of thought. That's all of the whole religion of non-conceptuality is basically the transcendence of thought. Yeah, I wouldn't say that that let's say when I'm typing, I don't know if I'm really experiencing the bliss, but there's definitely no anxiety. And yeah, fortunately, I live a very simple life because I've chosen to. So I this house, this really really big house, is heated with wood primarily. So I almost kind of literally live the chop wood, carry water life. So it's easy to remain present and self-aware while you're doing menial chores like vacuuming and cooking. And so always, I would say, always aim for simplicity, right? Always aim to wind the mind down rather than wind it up. Every time you engage in the screen or the page, you wind the mind up like a clock, like a watch. So every time that you do this, you're letting that winding wind down. But the problem is that most people get up and just start cranking it up again as soon as they're done. Like I've practiced with Buddhists who've been doing this for 30, 40 years, and they're still no closer to enlightenment because they let it wind down. But then as soon as they're done their zazen, they go on Facebook or whatever and try to make the world a better place, and they crank it back up again. It's really just about stopping. Like just stop and let that momentum finally just carry through so that the karmic momentum can stop. The final level though, right, is to realize that there are no levels anymore. Like that's what so that's what everyone's doing, right? Like everyone, as soon as there's a pause or a stillness, you just fill it up with something, right? Everyone is always looking for something to do all the time. It's, yeah, it's what everyone's doing. And what's the point? Like it, you die and it all goes away. It always all goes away. Like people don't want to just face what's obvious. And this is why, like, that is an indication of the unsubstantial nature of all experience, is because you're always looking for another one. So the whole thing is unsubstantial. Like we don't recognize how it's all unsubstantial. So here's a little thought experiment. Let's say that you want A, and the options are that either you get A or you don't get A. So if you don't get A, then there's a sense of incompleteness, right? You are a lack, you didn't get it. So that's kind of a bummer. You didn't get what you wanted. So that's a bummer. Let's say that you do get A. Well, what happens to A? Well, it always goes away. So then, even if you get what you want, there's a sense of loss when that goes away. So, how in that situation, either you don't get it, which is a bummer, or you get it and then you lose it. Well, how is that not suffering? How is this whole thing not suffering? So, just rest in what you are, rest in what you can't be without. So whenever you notice boredom setting in or restlessness and your mind is really like, okay, well, let's go do something. That's a great opportunity to get through that barrier. Push it. Always push it, push it, push it. After a while, the mind will start going, all right, well, thinking of things to do and excuses to leave and go do something. Well, if that's just entertainment, then don't do it. Because lots of times it's just entertainment, right? I just want to, it's nothing important, right? So if it is just, oh, I want to go look at something or eat something when I'm not hungry, then just go past it. Just keep pushing, pushing further and further. It's like lifting weights. You have to push past that barrier and go through the pain. Yeah, idle hands are the devil's playground. How is the devil using hands that aren't moving? Right? Like how can you do anything bad when you're not doing anything? It makes no sense. It should have been like an active mind is the devil's playground. Yeah, it's it isn't like battling demons and stuff like in the movies. It's just the subtle, mundane, everyday life that that is all representing, right? All of those myths and stories and epic movies of spiritual battles or whatever. It's all metaphor of your mundane everyday life, right? It's always just Maya wanting to pull your attention away from self into the world and thoughts. Like you are engaged directly in the purpose of this, right? So your life has ultimate meaning because you get the meaning of all of it, the reason for it, the meaning. So it almost becomes really daunting to realize that holy shit, this whole time, it's always all been about the game. It's the times that I forgot that I just was going along with life like everyone else thinks it is. I was in delusion and being duped by Maya the whole time. So it's all of a sudden your life can go from basically no meaning to just every single thing you focus on and everything you do has meaning. A lot of responsibility, right? But it's easier to look at it as a game rather than a battle. I mean, so much of the Christian narrative has been that it's a battle, right? But I think it's a game. There isn't any really malevolence going on. It's all just the way the program was designed. So Maya is always looking for new things to keep you interested. That's the whole thing. So it pops up a suggestion, like a search engine, pops up as, oh, would you like to watch this next? And then if you just say no and don't give it any attention, then it learns. It goes away and okay, well, it doesn't like that. And then it'll suggest another one. And if you follow it, well, it'll just keep suggesting new things to pay attention to until you're frontal lobe deep in Maya again. So it's not some there's not evil. There isn't such a thing as evil. It's just you get caught in this loop. Even God can get caught in this loop, not forever, but temporarily. And that's what happens. That's perfect. There was a game I played in school with friends. The rule for the game was don't think about the game. If you thought about it, then you lost the game. Yeah. Well, it's again this program or this game that the creator has created is masterful because the more attention you give it, the more it seems real, and the more interesting it gets, well, the more prone you are to give it more attention. And that's the process. It just keeps pulling your attention away from your beingness and into the made up realm. Well, that actually sounds interesting. Oh, if it's trivia, ugh, so trivial. Well, that's the thing, right? Is like being interested has its own energy, doesn't it? But again, that's a relative form of existence because you're inferring your existence through an interaction with something relative to you. But that doesn't last, right? So what we're doing is just being the absolute, where there needs to be nothing relative to you anymore. And this whole process can actually be looked as like a labyrinth, right? It limits the potential, the infinite expansion and just pure beingness. It limits it, puts up walls, and that's the game. You through that process, it manufactures a labyrinth of your own creation that you need to get out of. It's masterful, right? So would it be correct practice to continually remind myself that life is just a game? You lose whenever you forget that it's a game and win whenever you remember. I've found it beneficial to look at it that way. If you want to look at it, if you want some sort of meaning to life and reason to it, I think this is the best analogy to use, is that it's a game. So you can't take a game too seriously, can you? Like, they might pretend that the Super Bowl is really important with all the hubbub and everything, but it's just a fucking game, right? Like, it makes no sense. Right? It's just a bunch of grown men playing a game for no reason. So you can't take things too seriously from that perspective. But again, it's not necessary. Again, the practice is always, as soon as a thought comes up, even this is a game, that thought is transcended as well, right? So the practice is everything, even just trying to describe what this is or make sense of it, even that is dropped, because the making sense of it isn't in the thought. You can't make sense of it with your mind. So it always has to come back to just pure awareness. Well, that's what we think, right? We think that the game is about maybe collecting points, but it's to complete the game. Like, maybe when you're done and you get the highest score, maybe, I don't know, maybe Ramana Maharshi gives you a fist pump or something. But I mean, it's, you got the best score. But in the end, it's all about completion. That's the purpose of the game. And if you start believing that it's about getting points within the game, then you've lost the purpose of the game. And Maya's going, ha ha ha. And that's what nirvana is. That's what moksha is. That's what heaven is. Like, it's completion. Yeah. So to win the game, to beat the game, is to conclude the game. That's when you win the game, is when it's concluded. So when you're playing the game correctly, all of your actions move towards stilling the mind. So the mind is in the process of winding down, right? Your karmic momentum is always slowing, slowing, slowing. So that's when you're making progress in the game. And when you're getting lost in the game, that's when your mind is getting wound up and revved up, and your karmic momentum is speeding up. And that's where most of humanity is right now, is that the karmic momentum is hitting exponential levels, and everything's just speeding up so fast, right? So again, movement, stillness, it's pretty basic. Blinky's talking in speaking in tongues. So there does come a place where the more you submit and just let go and just release, that the self, just like gravity, just pulls you in. But you have to pull in those oars and just stop freaking paddling and just let that pull you in. And that's, I think, when it gets to be effortless, when you finally let go so many times that you just finally, like, you don't pick it up anymore. Like it's effortless. But it's almost like maybe breaking the sound barrier. Like it just is really, 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 really tough. And then finally, bang, you break through, and it's like a new state, almost a new level of consciousness. Because this state that I'm in isn't normal human consciousness, right? It's transcendent. Like what we are engaging here is the transcendence of human experience. It seems like it's just sitting around doing nothing, but it really is transcending the human experience. Like you are engaging in the transcendence of this level. It's a big deal. It's the biggest deal. And don't ever let the mind convince you that it's just boring and doesn't lead anywhere. Yeah, boredom. Boredom is maybe like that barrier that you need to break through, right? The boredom and the restlessness of just doing what that thought tells you to do. There comes a point where you become boss. The thoughts are no longer the boss, but you are. You can't, this is inevitable. It's just stick with it, never quit, and it's inevitable. Just give yourself, just chill. Don't judge yourself, just like you don't judge others. And just again, don't take it so seriously, right? Every time you go to sleep, all this freaking nonsense ends, right? So it's obviously because that judging is just more thought, right? So it's just recognize every thought that comes up and just go, meh, I choose not to give that energy. And again, realize that this is letting go of the entire world, right? So there's going to be some rough patches. There may be some crying. There may be some screaming. There may be, I don't know what, everyone's going to have a different way of letting go, but basically you're dying, right? The ego is dying. So you might expect that letting go of the entire world and having it never come back again, coming to this realization might be a little stressing to the ego, right? But again, you just let it go as best you can and just keep rocking. Mm. Yeah, but this is the thing, is you're going sane, right? We're all sitting here going sane. That's exactly it. Boredom is Maya trying to keep us stuck in samsara. That's exactly it. You don't want to go there, right? Boredom is the ego's defense mechanism, one of them, right? Fear is another one. Boredom and fear are Maya's 1-2 punch. But you got to just give it the juke. See me juking? And boredom, of course, is just the result of overstimulation. It's leveling back to the mean. Well, please don't get hung up on Roy Dobson because it's a fictional character that doesn't exist. And this upcoming singularity extinction event is when those disassociated fragments reunify, like in a very literal way. So, this is the most important time ever in all of history to be engaged in spiritual practice. Because when this occurs, you want to recognize self and be able to rest in that pure awareness that is absolute. And we will all be I, and it'll just be I. So, but if the ego is still prevalent, then the ego won't even recognize that, and it'll think that it's non-existence, and it'll panic and just create a new realm, and that'll be the digital realm. So yeah, it's a crazy time to be living, man. Like science fiction shit. It's all about practice now. Just if you do have the intellectual understanding, then just stop seeking, right? Just assume that you've found the solution and put all of your energy into practice now rather than seeking. So like I would suggest, don't read any more spiritual books, don't watch any more spiritual videos. Just now, right? Like if you know, then you need to stop seeking and just be it. Because in the seeking, you're not being it, are you? It's still a subtle little play of Maya to say, well, maybe I haven't quite got it yet. Maybe if I watch this video, I'll really get it. No, it's Ramana Maharshi saying, be rid of current thoughts. That is all. So many people think they're spiritual because they watch 6 freaking spiritual videos every day. So I've heard heaven be described as being eternally in God's presence. So if God is omnipresent, then why can't we just do that? So what this experience is being in God's presence or realizing that God is your presence. And then the eternal part is included in this because this is also a timeless state. So it's not like you can be in God's presence for an eternity. You can be God's presence in the present, right? So the presence is time free. There's no time there. So This is heaven. You're missing out on it because you're outwardly focused. So moksha, nirvana, heaven, Tao is here all the time as your presence. And when you realize that, there's no time, so you're eternally in God's presence. And that's why it's so self-fulfilling, is because exactly that. Heaven is simply being in God's presence. It's just bliss, right? Sat Chit Ananda. The irony of how twisted Christianity has got Christ's teaching is that to declare yourself as God is the highest sin, right? Is blasphemy. Where that's exactly the point of all of this, is that Christ told you that you were God, basically. And for whatever reason, that teaching got twisted into the exact opposite, where you can't even say that you're God. You can't even think it because it's the worst sin ever and you go to hell. Whoa. I think Christianity just needs to be scrapped and we can just start over. That's what non-conceptuality is, a reset. It's a reset of all religion and all science. It's just that there's only a few people that get it. Yeah, the legal system just keeps expanding too, doesn't it? The legal system, they just tweak the legal system every time they want to do something that's outside the law, right? They just keep making new laws to make it legal now. It's the same thing with religion, right? We're just going to keep tweaking the wrong system to think that it's going to get it right sometime. I'm saying the whole fucking mess needs to be scrapped. Like, they just start from scratch. Science is done. Religion is done. We need non-conceptuality now. I'm not fucking around, right? Like, I think that this should be the next religion or the next science, the next mode of investigation, of inquiry. Again, it's not really anything new. Ramana Maharshi was teaching it but it's a different perspective. It comes at it from a different angle. And I know a lot of people aren't very logically or scientifically oriented, but that seems to be the route that I want to take. And you don't have to take it as long as you get to the end, which is I concur. Like I can't even use the word non-duality anymore, because even non-duality to me has just been, it's just a bastardization of Advaita. Like most of non-dualists are not, haven't got a clue. I'm sorry, man. It's just, well, the main problem with non-duality as I see it is they just say that everything's one and then they just stay there. Everything's one thing, but that's the same as looking in the mirror and saying, so again, I use the analogy all the time of the state of humanity is that we know what we are not, but we don't know yet what we are. So we can look in the mirror and say, that's me, while possessing the inherent intuition, I am not that. Right. So, unfortunately, what non duality is saying when they say, oh, everything's one thing and that's it, is that they're saying, that's me and I'm that. They look in the mirror and they say that the reflection in the mirror is me and I'm that, but it's not, right? So there has to be this kind of a one-way mirror thing where one equals zero, but zero does not equal one. So when they say everything's one thing, then they have to include suffering and enlightenment because it's all one thing, right? So all of a sudden, samsara is moksha, and that's bullshit. And then you have to just, suffering is all part of it. So you just kind of say, oh, and then they say nonsense like, oh, well, the suffering doesn't bother me. Well, of course it does, because that's exactly what suffering is. It's being bothered. It's they don't recognize the subtle trap that they're in. They suffer and then they try to sweep it under the rug afterwards and said, oh, well, the suffering didn't bother me. It's nonsense. So that's why I created the word, I coined the word non-conceptuality, because I couldn't even call it, I couldn't call myself a non-dual teacher anymore. That's a ridiculous word because life is all there is. Oh, yeah. So, but we don't need to replace the word death. We need to replace the word nothing. And that's what my model has done, is replace the concept of what nothing is. You mean disconnect in a negative way? Hmm. Well, there's the word detachment, which is maybe a better word. See, this is my whole thing about non-conceptuality, is that it is what it is. And if anyone adds anything to it or takes anything away from it, it's no longer non-conceptuality. So this is how it's going to hopefully prevent the morphing of the teaching into something that no longer means what it means. So we can't there's no way to call non-conceptuality something, to do anything with it. It is what it is. No taking away, no adding to it. If you add something to it or take something away from it, like the words, the literal words, then it's no longer non-conceptuality. So we can't get to a point where all religions are, where 95% of it is just fringe nonsense that no longer has any semblance to the original teaching, right? So this is why non-conceptuality always just is the one-step path, right? It's just punk. It doesn't really lead to more thought. It leads to non-conceptuality. Well, gang, I'm feeling that that's probably it for now. Thanks for dropping by. I'm going to start doing more of these, and they'll probably be rather spontaneous. So yeah, thanks for deepening the roots of this non-conceptuality thing is finally sprouting. I've been holding on to this for quite some time, just me. But now it's starting to gain traction, to mix metaphors. It's starting to gain traction or sprout, and the roots are getting very deep because it's a few people that understand this at a very, very deep level that's going to keep this thing alive and have it grow naturally. So thank you for participating, and thank you for being non-conceptualists.